we will go ahead and get started. So first, I want to welcome each of you to our first Sustainability Summit at Autodesk. And I want to take a minute to just acknowledge those of you who are in the audience with us today. So first of all, we have a number of folks from the media, from press, reporters, analysts, bloggers. Those of you want to raise your hand so we see who you are. Excellent. We also have a number of customers, some of our favorite customers here, and you will hear from each of them, so I won't call them out right now. In addition, we have a number of guests here today and collaborators and partners, many of whom from the Bay Area. I see David and Diana from Biomimicry Institute, Jared Faludi from Stanford. We have Sheila Davis somewhere from Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition, some folks from UC Berkeley, other designers, and then a couple other customers of ours from Micromidas and a few other clean tech partners. So welcome all of you to our first Sustainability Summit. And then press releases that we'll talk about can be found at autodesk.com/PR-presskit. Great, so now we'll get started. Let's see. So these are four of many, many hundreds of images that we could use to describe where we are today, the magnitude of the incredible planetary challenges that we are facing, whether it's weather and global weirding, snowstorms and ice storms in the southeast, flooding in many different places, the magnitude of the challenge with e-waste, material issues, disposal, landfill issues, to urbanization, infrastructure challenges, transportation, and the many, many existing building stock that need renovation and retrofit. You each probably have your own favorite images that you use to describe the challenge here. And this is not an audience we need to convince. So on this slide, we have pulled headlines from the last 7 days. So these are all headlines pulled from some of your sites from the last 7 days. And I include these because I see these headlines as fairly indicative of the headlines that we've been seeing over the past year or more. And I think what you'll see is there's a lot that we can feel hopeful about. There's a lot of progress happening, whether it's valuing ecosystem services like Dow's news this week, to the continued news around renewable energy, hybrid technology, LEED certified buildings, etc. And we have our own headlines included in these this week. This first one around the carbon footprint of our biggest customer event, Autodesk University, 40,000 people. And our approach here, transportation and travel to the event, is the single largest piece of our footprint for the event. And so we've put a big effort into expanding the event to include a virtual component, AU Virtual, which enabled us to reduce the per attendee footprint by about 4%. But the real news is not the 4%. The real news is the fact that we have now come up with a methodology to understand the environmental footprint of events such as ours in Las Vegas, so that other companies with more events, bigger events, can also understand how to measure and manage these events. Second headline from us this week was the news that we are moving into our 7th LEED certified facility in Singapore. And this is the first LEED building in Singapore, which of course we are very proud of. But we are equally proud of the fact that we have used building information modeling and our own tools in the design of that LEED certified building. And then there's one other piece of news that I will let Don Danby speak to later in this morning's session. But if you all are like, is this mic okay? It feels really, what do I need to do? Slow down? Yeah. Is that better? Oh, it's much better. Okay. If you are like many of us working on sustainability issues here at Autodesk, or my colleagues in other companies, the question that we ask ourselves is, are we doing enough? Are we doing it fast enough? Do these headlines add up to the kind of transformational change that we know we need to accomplish to really address these problems? And this is where you all come in and where we need your help thinking about the headlines of the future down the line. So as context for today's event, pushing that out of the way, I was thinking back to 3 years ago. If we had had a sustainability summit in 2008, what is the news that we were proud of back then as context for where we are today? So first of all, we would be welcoming you to this new gallery space, which we just launched 3 years ago, the second LEED Platinum CI building in San Francisco, which now has hosted over 400 events, more than 200 tours, and perhaps most significantly, a third of the exhibits that you'll see in the gallery, and we'll have tours later, are exhibits that exemplify sustainable design among our customers. Or we would be launching the third series of the PBS E-Squared documentary series. Many of you remember, I see the head nodding here, The Economies of Being Ecologically Conscious, which has now been viewed by 250 million viewers. It's broadcast in 80 countries, and I hear there's 100,000 podcast downloads every month still. Or you would have been hearing about the launch of the Ask Nature portal, which we partnered with the Biomimicry Institute to catalog biological information and make it accessible to the design community, now used around the world. Recently won the International Environmental Award in London, and just came out on J. Walter Thompson's Things to Watch for 2011 Biomimicry. Or lastly, the launch of our very first sustainability report. There was our first carbon footprint, the first time that we'd been included in different indices, Dow Jones, FTSE4Good, Carbon Disclosure Project, etc. But the real news 3 years ago in that report was the articulation of Autodesk's vision and strategy, as Carl laid it out in that report. And the crux of that strategy, as many of you might remember, was not about carbon footprinting. It was not about partnering with excellent external thought leaders, but rather it was the work that we had to do in our own products to simplify sustainable design so that there are better tools on the market. So that was really the crux that we set out to do 3 years ago, and that brings us to today. So today, the big news is that the design software, the tools for sustainable design exist. Now, there's still more that we're working on that you'll hear about, but there are tools on the market today that are changing the world and are changing the face of sustainable design. And so many of you have seen a steady drumbeat of news over the last 3 years about acquisitions, about partnerships, about new workflows, new functionality. Today, you'll see how those tools have come to life across the different industries we serve and how they're being used by customers today in their design process. So we'll hear first from Emma Stewart and then John Kennedy talking about our work in cities and buildings in the AEC division. Then we'll hear from Sarah Crazley right here, who will talk about our work in green manufacturing and clean technology. And then last but certainly not least, we'll hear from Don Danby, who will be talking about a sustainability workshop that we are doing targeting students. And then most importantly, or as importantly, I want to welcome some of our favorite customers. And these are the pioneers, the early adopters, the first movers who are using this technology, changing their design practice, and quietly changing the face of design. So we've got David Johnson here from McDonough & Partners, we've got June Grant from AECOM, we've got Marcus Hayes from High Mobility, and we've got Aaron Engel-Hall, I should advance these, from High Mobility, and we have Aaron Engel-Hall from Stanford Mechanical Engineering class that put together the Bloom laptop here. And so hopefully what you will walk away today understanding is this, that the future is here. It's just not distributed yet. We have the right technology, or we have some of the right tools on the market, but we need to drive that adoption of those tools. So our wide sustainability community at Autodesk is intently focused on these three things: accelerating sustainable design as we look forward into the next few years. And a very core piece of that, of course, is providing the best portfolio of tools that make sustainable design easy, insightful, and cost-effective. And we now have, as opposed to 3 years ago, some of the very, very best talent in the divisions building the roadmaps of the future, making sure that we have the very best tools on the market for our customers. But we also realize that technology is not enough in and of itself. We need to put a lot of energy and attention into driving a full behavior change, a massive culture change, if you will, in the design community. And that's where we need all hands on deck and need your help in making that shift happen. So today, and now speaking to the reporters and bloggers and analysts in the room, we want you to think about your role as going beyond reporting about Autodesk's news. We love that you report on our news and we want you to continue doing that. But we also, as you listen to these presentations, we want you to think about how we can collectively work toward accelerating sustainable design and really changing the needle there so that the very idea of a sustainability summit 3 years from now, or maybe 4 years ago, and the very idea of green reporting and environmental reporters will feel like a relic of the past, so that, we got the click again, so that you are actively co-conspirating with us, collaborating with us, so that we can replace the early images of that we showed with those of a sustainable, restorative, thriving, healthy, regenerative planet that we know that we need to get to and certainly can get to. So here's what you'll hear today. So we're going to start with about an hour and a bit, hearing from each of our heads of the industry that I mentioned and the customers who are actively implementing these projects. And then we'll have Nathan Shedroff, who's somewhere here, who will be leading a discussion with these customers up here and a time for some Q&A as well. And then following that, the 3 press releases that I mentioned are here and available at the link, and any other information at autodesk.com/sustainable design. So Emma.